All right, hello everyone and welcome to Jaclyn's Survival Guide for Dummies. Let's be blunt, because a lot of this stuff I didn't really know growing up as a city kid who only went camping in a very prepared and had everything set up for me kind of way. I never really got to grow up with this kind of concept of living and learning off the land in a very minimalist perspective. So today I'm going to be teaching you how to build a fire as well as make cedar tea, which is a very medicinal tea that can be found in a lot of, obviously there's a lot of cedar trees around you in Canada especially, so, and they're evergreen, so you can make this tea year round. I'm hoping to be able through this video to demonstrate what I've learned this past year through my amazing living and learning on the land class, and also spending a lot more time at Curve Lake with my best friend and having her give me a lot of traditional knowledge that she really didn't have to share and was such a privilege learning. So yeah, today I'm going to be showing you how to build a fire, keep it going, and use it to make some cedar tea. So I hope you enjoy, and yeah, let's get started. Alright, so today I'm going to be using a fire pit, just because obviously I'm in my backyard in a residential area, so you have to be able to legally keep the fire at least somewhat contained, I would hope. So it usually comes with, mine came with a grill kit as well as a cover, just to help keep anything such as flying wood debris and things like that from coming out. But I won't be using that today because I want to be able to use it as a reference for if you were on the land in a little bit more of a remote setting. So hope you enjoy. All right, so I was kind of fortunate that throughout the storm that had just occurred, I had a lot of trees fall, because as you can see, these trees are older than time, so they were well due for a trimming, and I think the storm just did all the work for us. Mother Earth really came through on that one. So I have big pieces of wood here that I'll be using for the base of my fire, as well as small kindling wood that I can use to kind of keep the fire going and feed it, as well as some extra wood over here and bigger planks that I can use to be able to set my cast iron on. Oh, helpful tip. If you find that one of your pieces of wood is actually good for a poking stick, like this guy here, you can use it to kind of, obviously when you're working through the fire, you can't use your hands. So that will really be helpful when it comes to being able to keep your fire contained as well as just maintain its shape. But the other thing too is when you're going through and looking for a place, for example, on a more remote space like on the land, you want to be sure that you're creating or finding a space that's evenly, like at least somewhat flat, and has a partial block from one end or the other from the wind. If you can't find somewhere that's impartial to being able to be hit by wind, that's not really that big of a deal. You just want to be sure that you have a level ground that you can begin to build a strong fire from, and then if anything, the wind at that point would help fan the flame and keep it going. So what we've done here, because I've obviously had several fires in this pit, I've just used the natural grates and been sure that every piece of ash was laid out properly, just so that it creates an even distribution for when you're building the logs up to create a fire. All right, so as you can see from the pile of wood that I showed before from over here, I took even pieces. So what I mean by that is every piece that I got came in a pair that was evenly matched in size and length, that I know, obviously in comparison to the pit, you can see that every piece will fit. That, and also because obviously I have a constraint, like a confined space, every piece needs to fit but also have room for ventilation. And the way that I'm going to be shaping these in sort of the house format, which would be like a square shape, like a log house, needs to be able to fit in properly, but also I got them in pairs, so size and length in pairs, so that for every level, each piece could have the proper ventilation and be even as you go up, so that it has more structural integrity for anything you want to cook on top of it, or anything that you want to be able to continue to burn for a long period of time and feed without really having everything crumble. So this will be this video, and then the next video I'll be showing you how I build it. pieces that I wanted to use that are dry. They don't seam it, but they are very dry, that I just wanted to kind of face in to also reinforce the structure. But I kind of made it so that everything was even with the base, just so when I set a few extra pieces of wood, hopefully along this end to keep the crisscross of the log cabin going, I wanted to be able to have kind of an even playing field so that the cast iron, when it sits to start cooking, would be able to sit comfortably and not be afraid of having it begin to tip as the wood begins to burn. Alright, so taking a small walk to the edge of my property here, I ended up brushing out, obviously cleaning up the lawn a little bit, but as you can see, there's a lot of condensed, I call them leaf berries because they're soon to be leaves that didn't get to progress into being them, but they actually make for a great fire starter. Same with all the smaller, more dainty branches that would have fallen with them. They really make for a great kindling, great fire starter, and help feed the fire when things are just getting started, and actually can be used in the middle of the log cabin to help keep the inside of the wood going, and then possibly with ventilation, obviously with the way that the log cabin was structured, be able to continue to feed the fire throughout. But this is a great fire starter if you're looking for something on the land, especially this time of year. You would see this in a lot of places because especially post-storm or post-strong winds, it would be all over the ground in a remote area. Alright, so I basically took all that kindling, especially the small pieces of branches, kind of locked them into the crevices just to create a bit of ventilation. As you can see, there's still light coming through along the sides and everything, but especially the leaf berries and everything like that are kind of scattered within the confines of the middle of the log cabin that I've created, just to help with the ventilation as well as get the fire started and start to burn the wood along the outside to keep it going. Alright, to get the fire started, I'm fortunate enough to have some long reach matches. If not, there are smaller matches that you could use as well. Keeping matches on hand while you're in a remote area is really important, just because lighters aren't always reliable, and matches can be a second option for you at any given point, especially the long reach matches if you have them while you're out on the land. They're extra thick and burn for a longer time. That, as well as just having the option to be able to be further away from the flame getting started because you don't know how fast it will accelerate. It might be a safer bet just to get these. Also ignore my brick. That was my tripod setup because we're balling on a budget here. But anyways, these are my two camping necessities. If I don't have these, I always have at least 2 to 3 packs of matches. If not, I do have a lighter on hand, but lighters are not always a guarantee, and matches are more of a game set match when it comes to starting a flame. Great, so as you can see, the fire is getting started. You can see the match. I ended up doing 2 just because the first one didn't really hit as well and it kind of got flamed out. But this guy here obviously is getting everything started. It's looking great and it's slowly building itself inwards, which is what's important. And as you can see, the wind in itself between each of the logs is actually properly ventilating everything due to the shape. Alright, so as you can see, the fire is going. So I'm just going to set the cast iron down on the open flame in the most even space possible. Obviously the water in itself will kind of guide you as to what is the most level. That seems to be the best. So within 30 seconds of dropping it, because the cast iron is a great conductor for heat, you can actually see that the water itself is already starting to steam and boil. As you can see, the little water droplets are forming here. So in the next few seconds, I'm going to go over and retrieve some cedar from my little cedar trees that have yet to be planted because the ground is still so hard. I'll grab some of that and let everything go to a rolling boil, and it should be good to go for drinking. One thing to always remember when it comes to being in a more remote area and trying to obtain natural water sources to be able to have them boiled for proper drinking water is to always go, from what I gathered from Jack and to be quite honest, a lot of survival movies, is to always be sure that you're grabbing water from an area where the water is constantly flowing, because still water or anywhere where you see beaver dams contain heavy amounts of bacteria that cannot be boiled out. So going to a water source that is constantly flowing, especially with the sediment in the water, like rocks and things like that, being able to be used as filters help create the most potable water once boiled. Alright, so my little cedar trees here, I'm just going to take from clear branches that are able to be distinguished by the base. So you can usually tell that the plant is still good when the base has a little bit more traction and it can't just be pulled right off. So if you want to create the most enriched cedar tea, you want to be sure that you're pulling from cedar trees that are green and well grown, and the branch has a little bit more fight in it when it comes to pulling it off, because then it's not dead and it hasn't lost its nutrients. And don't worry, though they are small little guys, they're very strong and fortified. As an evergreen in Canada, they can live a very long life in the harsh winters of Canada. And don't worry, they will be planted once the ground is less hard over there to replace all of the old dead trees here. So they're doing their work and growing strong. So hopefully they'll be ready to be planted in the next month or so when the ground is a lot more malleable. Alright, so I have my bits of cedar here, and the amount of water I have is just for one individual to be able to have about a cup of tea. So if you would like more, obviously you just need a slightly bigger cast iron or camping pot, as well as a bit more cedar, depending on how intense you would like the flavor to be. I love cedar tea and I love the flavor that it creates, so I am a big fan of more is more, not less is more. So yeah, so now that it's at mostly a rolling boil, as you can see here, I'm just going to drop in the cedar. And when it comes to worrying about like bacteria within the cedar, you also have to think that if you're grabbing a clean piece of cedar, like these guys are young and fruitful, if you grab a clean piece of cedar and let it boil, the boiling in itself will also help with any bacteria, and it will be just as potable as the water itself. Alright, so it happened to be that my partner heard that I was making some cedar tea, and because he's not feeling well, I told him that it'd probably be a good idea to have a cup or two. So we're just going to add a bit more water while this is still in a rolling boil. And I hope you enjoy my mug. I chose it with care. And we're going to wait for the rest of this to boil. I might add a bit more cedar just to intensify the flavor now that I've diluted it a little bit. But obviously it's up to personal preference. If you would like to add more or less, that is completely up to you. But if you want to enjoy this tea also, sweetener as well as honey is a great other remedy to be able to use, especially if you have a sore throat or you're feeling ill. Cedar tea and honey is actually a phenomenal way to help heal you from the inside out. Alright, so when it comes to your fire, as well as maintaining a rolling boil, you need the friendly reminder to constantly feed your fire, because the inside of the log cabin, especially when it comes to the kindling, will burn significantly faster than the logs around it. So you need to be sure that you're constantly feeding kindling to the fire, especially at the beginning of a fire, so the rolling boil stays consistent. Because from what I've heard, at the moment the rolling boil stops and the fire goes out or dies, you need to restart your clock of about the 2 to 5 minute mark to be able to make the water potable. I would always recommend doing the 5 minute consistent rolling boil to be sure that it's potable, even though Jack and some other people say 2. I just personally, even though this is Peterborough water and not natural running water, it still should be at a 5 minute mark for boiling. I've heard 2. If you want to go 2 and you feel like it's safe, go for it. But I just recommend a good 5 minutes just to be sure that, one, your water maintains its heat, as well as the rolling boil has consistently, especially with the adding of natural sourcing for tea, I would recommend a 5 minute boil. Alright, as you can see, the tea is still boiling. It's been about 5 minutes. A good indicator, as you can kind of see here, is sticking a spoon or something that is more of a neutral color. You can actually kind of see, obviously, the color of the water has changed, which means that a lot of the nutrients from the leaves themselves have been absorbed out into the water through the boil. A good tip: do not stand right in the eye of the smoke, because your eyeballs will burn and it will look like you were crying. Don't do that. Alright, so the tea's good to go. It's been at a rolling boil for actually about 7 minutes. Ignore my dirty gloves. But be sure that you have some sort of hand protection, because obviously the handle, due to the way that the flames are coming out, will be burning hot. So take the pot off here. There's our little cup. Beautiful. You can either leave the pot back on the fire here, or obviously if you're sharing the cup with some other people, like everyone's getting a cup, you'd serve that up. And the longer you let that sit on the heat with the least amount of water, like we've mentioned, the more intense the flavor. But you can only extract so much from cedar trees before it begins to burn them. And obviously with a cast iron, because of the level of heat that it's exuding as a conductor, you will start to diminish the amount of water naturally through a boil anyways. So you just want to be sure that you're not ending up burning your cedar in any way. Alright, so now that your tea is done, you can just drink and enjoy. And I hope you enjoyed my informational video / survival guide on how to build a fire and make cedar tea. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. To whoever is watching, hello Jack. I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great summer. And thank you so much for all you've taught me. And I can really credit a lot of what I know about living and learning on the land to this course, and I'm forever grateful for it. And I hope to be able to translate that into more remote outdoor experiences that I hope to be doing in the coming summer and coming years. Thank you.